Chapter 12. Blood of the Betrayed. I shrugged and indicated for her to lead the way. She snapped her fingers and a bluish portal opened and she stepped through immediately, so I followed her through. She led me to a medium-sized farm in the middle of a lush jungle, and indicated to the several pens around the farm. There were sizable prints in the earth. My animals sometimes get taken. I need you to take out whatever is taking my animals. I have your artifact. Do this and it's yours. I glanced at Ursula and shook my head slowly. This is going against the trials, my lady. But I will do as you ask. My blood is boiling and I want to destroy it. Ursula eyes me up cautiously and pointed towards a small patch behind the trees. I turned and strode through the trees without a second thought. I spread my wings and soared through the treetops, feeling the leaves tickling my armor. I looked up when I caught a flash of movement and a dragon burst out of the undergrowth, aiming right for me. I grabbed its tail and slammed it into a few trees and kneed it in the face. The dragon snapped at me and I saw the colors of red and white running the length of its sleek body. Nixera, is that you, girl? What happened to you? The dragon's eyes snapped open, and it stared directly at me before leaping away from me in a flash. Her eyes were glowing green orbs tinged with deep crimson. She bared her fangs and breathed a gout of blistering fire, but I just stood there letting the fire consume me, not making any move towards her. My eyes glowed through the blazing fire burning into hers. Nixera shook her head and launched herself forward and sank her teeth into my chest, clamping down as hard as she could. Her powerful jaws started to shatter the armor and sank into my flesh. Instead of attacking, I stroked her head calmly and whispered to her, "It's going to be all right, Nixera. I'm going to get you sorted out." Nixera turned her eyes back onto me and slowly blinked before raising her wings and launched herself high into the air before zooming away on the four winds. I quickly followed suit, dodging the trees and sharp, unexpected rocks. Nixera vanished before my eyes. I glanced around and felt something in the distance. I zoomed over as quickly as I could, but the destruction that followed was nothing to be ready for. Where the city used to be was a burning crater and houses that had been squashed to pulp. I gazed around at the devastation. My rage boiled over and I roared to the heavens, my bellows splitting the sky. I sank to my knees and watched as the remaining occupants of the city were milling around trying to piece together the events that had transpired. The city saw my demonic form and began to slowly advance towards me, obtaining sticks and rocks to hit me and hurl at me. I rose to my feet and growled, "Stay where you are, humans. I have no wish to ruin your lives. My dragon will be brought before me to answer for this. But please do not blame her. She is being corrupted." The city all began to charge with their weapons. I shrugged and snapped my fingers and the ground spat long tendrils of shadows that tore them apart in seconds. I walked towards the humans cowering on the floor and picked one up by the head. What way did the dragon go human? I will find her and I will destroy the thing responsible for causing this. The human that was wriggling in my claws screamed back. It went over yonder, towards the town. It said there is a heavy presence of your brethren stationed there. The human spat in my face and wriggled more violently. I turned my burning eyes back onto him and threw him into a wall and heard his back snap instantly. I drew Anubis's scythe and pressed the blade to his throat. My third eye flashed open and I ordered, "Human, rise and face your punishment for being a waste of valuable oxygen." The human rose to his feet against his own will and the color drained from his face when he saw my rows and rows of teeth which were eager to bite into him. A portal opened and the gods came out, their faces masks of horror. Gabriel stepped forward and shook his head. "Is this what my sister asked you to do, demon? Did she ask you to raze the cities to the ground?" I gazed at Gabriel for a minute before throwing the human back towards the other humans. "Gabriel, so nice of you to turn up eventually. Something is corrupting Nixera. I'm going after her." Gabriel drew his blades and barred my way. "I'm afraid I cannot allow that, Enidon. Your actions have been overlooked for a long time now, but we have caught you in the middle of destroying this city. I shook my head and felt the same devastating power I had felt once when I was fighting Ammon and just when the city had been destroyed. I looked to distance and teleported the gods there in seconds. We saw a huge serpent drifting in the sky, flying off to its next destination. Gabriel looked at me and shrugged. This dragon is yours, is she not? So her actions are yours. Take responsibility, Enadin. The lives lost here are solely on you. I turned my back on the angel and took off after Nyxera. She flicked her tail and sharp barbs shot down, almost piercing me. I rose into the air and landed softly onto Nyxera's back. I placed my hands on her cool scales and tried to draw out the evil, but none came out. She snickered and said, "You won't find any because it's not her boy. I just thought I would lead you away from her so she can charge up." The dragon's disguise melted away to reveal I was stood on the back of Ammon. The demon's soulless eyes rolled back to stare at me. I drew my blades and plunged down when Ammon puffed in a cloud of smoke and I was sent slamming into the ground, flipping head over heel. I roared in frustration and surged into the air. Insatiable screeches filled my ears, bringing me to my knees. I stared into the sky with tears streaming down my face. "Nyxera, where are you?" Anubis appeared from a portal and sat next to me. "My king, you can pinpoint her location, just as you can for me. Just focus your third eye and you can see where we all are." I closed my eyes and left my third one open. I looked around for what felt like an age, until I found her. Her screeches drawing me closer until I saw her, locked in the prison of her own mind, while the corruption spread through her steadily. I reached out to touch her cool scales when I was wrenched from my visions. The earth beneath me caved away. I heard Anubis say, "She is on the move again, my king. Shall we follow?" I spread my wings and soared after her. She was heading for a large city that was hidden behind a mountain range. I flew before her face and screamed, "Nyxera, I know you're in there. We will help you. Just hang tight. We love you." Nyxera flicked me away with a swipe of her claws and a roar of rage. Her blazing eyes focused on me and she bellowed, "How many times must I knock you back down? Do you wish for me to kill you? I would destroy you in seconds, boy. Now leave." I heard a voice say, "Fight the creature. Not at full strength if you don't wish to kill her. I need to view this serpent's form to see what happened to her." Nyxera flew forward only to be stopped by an invisible wall. My third eye was wide open, staring deep into her eyes. I could feel a devastating evil aura swarming around me, feeding off my energy. My demon form began to absorb the evil coming from Nyxera. I absorbed a great deal of evil off Nyxera and began to grow. Scales began to cover my body and a second set of wings split from my shoulders. A snout spread from my jaw and my teeth protruded from my jaws. I roared and fixed my gaze onto Nyxera and grinned. "Another wave, my dear child." Nyxera glared at me but obliged and emitted even more evil. The cloud grew thick and heavy with me in the middle. I glanced around but kept the barrier up. My cackles reached Nyxera's ears. I heard a whimper, and I knew it was her. My cackles grew more erratic the more I consumed the evil. The cloud slowly vanished as I consumed the last bit and my eyes glowed with darkness. And I was wreathed in shadows, like a second skin. I gazed at Nyxera and tilted my head to the side. "Will you listen to me now, my child? Stop this madness. Come home and hone your skills. We do not destroy innocent villages and cities." Nyxera's eyes twitched and her eyes began to grow dark again and she reared back, shattering the barrier in a flash. She whipped her tail at me, throwing barbs that impaled me through the stomach. The barbs entered my body and I raised my finger and shot the barbs back at her with pinpoint precision. They tore through her wings at high speed and she bellowed in pain. I appeared in front of her and placed my hand on her head. Blinding white light engulfed us both as the evil washed off her and into me. I threw back my head and screamed as the evil scorched my body with invisible flames. I absorbed all the evil and both Nyxera and I fell to the earth with a thud. Portals opened all around us and the gods ran through. I was in bad shape. The evil had scorched every inch of my body, staining the scales a dark amber. My body was still, not moving. Miasma stepped over and placed his fingers to all my pressure points to read my pulse, but got nothing. His eyes locked onto Angel and he quickly looked away, shaking his head. Anubis paced over and nudged Nyxera and she started stirring. She woke up and saw my body and roared a melody of pure sadness. She curled her body around mine, guarding it with her life. Angel stumbled forward and fell to her knees, sobs racking her body. Gabriel saw something on my wrist and saw the band of feathers I had tied around it. He approached Nyxera and reached out his hand to pluck one of the feathers. When she whipped her head around and roared at him, Gabriel fell back slightly and rose to his feet, tears streaming down his face. Nyxera, I command you to let me use a feather on him. We need to see the damage done. Please. Nyxera growled but slowly made enough room for the archangel to fit. He plucked one of the feathers and placed it on my forehead and another on my chest. The demon form melted away slowly to reveal the bloody mess. 4 puncture marks ran across the torso, my flesh was burnt to a crisp and claw marks had torn through my chest. Thick gold blood leaked from my body in floods. The gods looked at Miasma and he shrugged. Unfortunately, there is nothing I can do. I work with the living, not the dead. Booming laughter echoed through the skies, accompanied by lightning and thunder. Actually, little Miasma, there is something you can do. I'm sending a lieutenant to give you something. Use it. I know you don't trust me as in trying to dominate the earth, but I have said many times, I do not want him dead. Use it and think of it as a gift. A portal opened and a strange demon crawled backward and threw a bag to Miasma. The demon turned back around and sprang through the portal and vanished as quick as she came. The bag had a vial of strange green liquid that swirled angrily. Miasma poured it down my throat until the bottle was empty. Ammon's voice boomed again. It will take a few weeks, maybe even months. But he will be back. Stay with him until then. Demons and fallen angels alike will be trying to take him to devour. Do not let this happen. The gods formed a protective circle around my body and set up camp. Angel threw herself forward and wrapped her arms around my neck, her tears splashing onto my burnt flesh. Anubis trotted over and lay next to her with his head resting on her lap, and Nyxera curled around them both and they cried heavy tears. Thunder boomed overhead and it began to rain. The wind whipped up in a frenzy as the sun set. Anubis growled a warning, and the shadows came alive with creatures of the night. The gods leaped straight into action, taking down the hordes of demons until the sun rose. A few months went by, and it was the same situation every night. One night a particularly savage storm sprang out of nowhere, and the demon hordes came with the fallen angels, but this night they didn't attack. They seemed scared to move any closer. A nasty-looking demon strode up wielding a pair of cruel-looking daggers. I can sense you people are harboring a strong essence. One we need to survive. I would like to form a trade. All the gold we have plundered for your demon. What say you? The gods were about to tear him apart when a tentacle of darkness shot out and wrapped around his throat. Nyxera sprang to her feet and Angel and Anubis jumped back. I levitated to my feet and brought the demon close to my face. I grinned eerily at him with my eyes closed but my third eye being open. I'm sorry, my friend, would you repeat that? I've been dead for a few months, so I didn't quite catch that. My tentacle tightened around his throat as my third eye stared straight into his soul. The demon thrust both his daggers into my sides and twisted. I glanced down and smiled evilly. Oh, how kind of you to decorate my flesh. I must say it sweets me, don't you think? But something has been bothering me. You asked these nice people here if you could buy me. Isn't that correct? The demon's eyes widened as he tried to shake his head. I brought my face close to his. I wouldn't lie to me, my friend. It would be a shame to splatter your brains around this place. So, I will ask you one more time. Did you say it? Gabriel waved at me. Hey Enodin, it us. My head snapped in his direction, and I glared at him. Archangel Gabriel. Have you all been here this whole time? Gabriel eyed up the demon and held up his hands. It's good to see you, but don't let me interrupt your business. Proceed. I turned my head back to the demon and grinned. My eyes glowed with darkness, and I snapped, I haven't had my answer yet, demon. The demon nodded slightly and tried to speak. I placed my finger to his lips and squeezed the tentacle tighter until the demon's eyes popped from its head and its head exploded. I turned my gaze onto the remaining demons, and they fled in terror, tripping over each other to escape. I turned back to Gabriel and smiled warmly. Gabriel went in for a hug, but I blocked his attempt at getting close. You didn't answer my question. Gabriel paused and tilted his head. Yes, we have been here this whole time. What's the matter? I gazed at Gabriel with a strange look on my face. I was dead, Gabriel. For several months. Why is the world not overrun with demons in my absence? How am I alive? Gabriel placed a hesitant hand on my shoulder and pulled me in for a hug. Angel joined, then the rest of the gods joined. My eyes lost their dark glow and was replaced by my normal emerald tinged with red eyes. Angel planted a kiss on my lips over and over. I cuddled her the tightest and buried my face into her shoulder. I locked eyes with Nyxera, and she quickly glanced away. I stretched out my hand and laid it softly on her snout. I quickly detangled myself from the barrage of cuddles as my third eye sprang open and portals opened all around, flooding the area in an eerie green glow. Hordes of demons and fallen angels tore forward at top speed. But compared to me, they were really slow. I weaved among the invading army and killed each one before they had a chance to draw their weapons. 2 more portals sputtered into life and 2 armor-clad warriors advanced slowly. I eyed the smaller one up carefully when I had a sense that I had faced both opponents before. The strange movement of the smaller warrior hit me with realization. Dear Lord, I must fight you two again. Perseus and Gilgamesh. But you guys weren't a challenge. The only challenge I faced that day was Hercules. I sprang forward with inhuman power and tore Gilgamesh's head clean off his body and threw it at Perseus, who cut it clean in half with his blades. Blood dripped from the blades as he began to advance. I smiled and placed my hand to the wall and watched as a dark shadow split the wall and erupted out the floor behind Perseus. The warrior turned a split to late as the tentacle of shadows speared into him from behind, and I fed off the fallen hero. Gabriel appeared next to me with Ursula and the old man from Kethos. I turned my gaze onto the old man first and cocked my head. What did you find out about Nyxera? What is causing this? The old man shook his head. Unfortunately, your species of dragon, the Hellspawn, are a dragon that is not supposed to be commanded. Their sole job is to grow into the harbingers of destruction. Ammon created them for just that purpose and to give him the souls they have reaped. You will need the ultimate connection with her if you have any hope to break this curse. Since it's Ammon who created the curse, it's not going to be easy. You both must be alive and dead for each other. I have heard rumors that a fiery portal has opened somewhere to the south. I would suggest heading there for your dragon. I whistled sharply and Nyxera poked her head through the window. Yes, master. How can I help? I smiled and held my hand out slowly to scratch her nose. I think we may have found a way to break the curse. It's not a certainty, but it's worth a shot. Ursula stepped forward and held out her palm for me to see the glittering ring lay within. I gazed at it for a while before lightly picking it up and placing the cold ring to Nyxera's nose. She drew back her head and began to grow larger still. I placed the ring on my finger, and I could feel the power. I could feel ancient cuts healing, and I grinned. Thank you, Ursula. I will put it to good use. I promise. Gabriel knelt to the floor and Ursula stayed where she was. I gazed at her and narrowed my eyes. Gabriel, rise. Is there something else I can do for you, Miss Ursula? Gabriel shot her a look and shook his head. Ursula pulled her tongue out and asked, I wish to help in the upcoming battle. Battle. I can heal everyone, and I can call an army of creatures. Please. I locked eyes with Gabriel and shrugged. Unfortunately, that is up to Gabriel. If he doesn't feel comfortable with sending you into a battle where there is a high chance of fatalities, then neither do I. Ursula crossed her arms and pointed at Angel. But Angel is going, isn't she? If she's going, then so am I. I brought my face close to Ursula's and whispered, who says Angel is going? My plan is to protect her, not cause her to lose her life. I'm doing the same for you. No arguments, orders from the king. Me. I leaned back in my throne and brought my hooves onto the floor a few times. A loud ringing emitted from the floor, call in the gods. I rose to my feet and surveyed the assembled gods and nodded to myself. I have brought you all here today as I need a few of you to step up while I'm away for a while. I leave the castle in your capable hands. In charge of the palace while I'm gone is going to be Angel. Anubis, I would like you to stay here and guard her until me and Nyxera return. I leaped out of the window and landed on Nyxera's back and shouted, keep the palace in order. I will not be happy to see it destroyed. Nyxera rose into the air and sped off with me clinging to her back. She burst through the cloud bank and rose above the clouds. It looked beautiful. Stars glittered brightly as they began to light up the evening sky, and the sun threw off a strong last ray of protest before disappearing over the horizon. A few hours went by and then suddenly, Nyxera began to descend, and we saw the large portal which burned with unholy fire. I leaped to the ground and drew my scythe, and Nyxera landed beside me and slowly began to shrink to her old size and stalked beside me. We stopped before the portal and then stared at each other. Are you ready, girl? I'm ready when you are. Nyxera slowly blinked her crimson eyes and nodded. We stepped through and it felt like my flesh was burning until I got to the other side. Nyxera stood next to me and I could see she didn't like this place. She stayed close to my side as we walked. I glanced down and asked, do you know where we're going? I hope. My sentence was cut short when we got to the edge of the cliff and saw a large swirling mass in the center maze of blazing fire and demons and dragons. I spread my wings and launched myself towards the mass in the middle when something speared into my side and threw me into the floor. I looked down to see a large barb embedded through my stomach. I felt my back and realized the barb had gone right the way through and came out the other side. I screamed in pain as I felt my blood beginning to boil violently. I clawed the scorched earth as the pain intensified. I managed to glance up and saw the horde of demons and dragons staring at me with a hungry look in their eyes. I struggled to my feet when another barb shot into my right flank. I looked back at the offending demons and dragons and began cackling. I drew my scythe as my blood had stopped boiling, and I became a whirling storm of singing steel. They fell to my blade and the remaining began to scatter. I heard a screech and Nyxera was at her full height and she fixed her gaze upon the fleeing foes and scorched them with blistering heat, finishing them off. She nudged me and pulled out the barbs embedded into my flesh. I growled deeply and sank to my knees, watching them heal quickly. After they had healed, she tilted her wing and I climbed on, and she galloped across the burning plains. As we got to the center of the maze, I could feel something happening to me. I jumped off Nyxera's back and began to walk towards the glowing mass in the middle and waited for Nyxera to stand next to me. The mass swallowed us both in an instant. I could feel the inferno around me and I could feel my flesh melting away and becoming one with the swirling mass. I saw a flash of red and white and realized Nyxera was in here with me too. Our souls slammed into each other and then the mass slowed down and began to grow smaller. A second went by and then a blinding light exploded, violently destroying half of the burning plains. The combined power of our souls was causing the swirling mass to implode. It spat us back out and fell apart. I stared at Nyxera and grinned. Is it done now? Are we clear? Nyxera blinked her eyes at me slowly and replied, I suppose we will find out sooner or later. Until then I suppose we ought to get back. I grinned at her, but don't you think creatures from this realm would help us in our battle? Nyxera tilted her head and nodded. They may well be. If you think you have enough power for it, then let's go. Just be careful. I will feel everything you feel. Pain and emotion. I saw a hulking creature staring us down from on the cliff. I launched myself up towards it and the creature swung its club. I sprang up the club and delivered a powerful kick to its face, causing it to fall back a few paces. The creature bellowed angrily and fixed its eyes on me. My third eye flashed open and the creature looked unfazed. It kicked out, but I grabbed its leg and jumped off the cliff, bringing it to the edge, and leaped up and kicked its ass. It bellowed as it fell. It crashed into the floor and staggered to its feet, where I landed next to Nyxera. I placed a hand on Nyxera's head and stared the creature deep in the soul. Your life is now mine. Failure to comply will result in your destruction. The creature groaned and slowly lowered itself to its knee and bowed its head. I pulled its head up and glared at it. Where is your leader? If I can find him, all I need to get an army is recruit him. The creature looked back to a large gaping hole in the face of the mountain. You will find the brood in there. I grinned at Nyxera and said, shall we do it? Nyxera flicked her wings and replied, that's not up to me, my lord. If you wish to go, then I will follow. I spread my wings and tore through the entrance at full speed. I summoned a fireball and launched it to the other end of the cavern, waking up every creature inside. A rising crescendo of howls and bellows rang through the air, and a hulking shadow appeared in front of me and slammed both fists into my chest, sending me flying back into a wall. I grabbed the leader by the ear and slammed its head repeatedly into the wall. My third eye opened and I stared deep into its soul and roared, you will fight for me, demon. That is your purpose. After the war you will be free to return here. The demon locked eyes with me, and as soon as he bowed on the floor, every other demon bowed to me too. I chuckled and shouted, stay here until I call for you. It shouldn't be too long now. We got back to the palace a short while later to be greeted by the whole family. Angel leaped into my arms and planted me with kisses. I hugged her tightly and buried my face into her shoulder. I smiled and whispered into her ear, I love you, Angel. Everything I do is for you. I grinned to the assembled gods and said, while me and Nyxera were away, we recruited a few new allies. They will make an excellent addition to the team. I opened a portal and pointed my finger towards it. I would only poke your head through, as they can be dangerous. The gods poked their heads through and saw the glorious creatures fighting amongst themselves. The gods pulled back in horror and gazed at me, looks of disbelief on their faces. Blackbeard asked, how did you manage to get them? They don't look friendly. I grinned and shook my head. They were friendly enough. They gave me a few greeting gifts. I pulled up my armor and showed off the 2 impalement holes. Angel traced them with her fingers and watched in fascination as they healed right before her eyes. Angel jumped up and threw her arms around me and asked, are you both healed now? I looked at Angel and smiled. I do believe we are. The problem between me and Nyxera is resolved. Miasma stood next to me and pulled my sleeve. I peered down and I noticed the worry etched on his face. Are you still dying, my lord? Is that healed yet? I placed a hand on Miasma's shoulder and squeezed it lightly. Lightly. No, my friend. But that doesn't matter, does it? As long as this world is safe and Angel can live here problem-free, then I'm happy. Perhaps after Ammon is dead, I will be able to shed my evil. Miasma nodded and pointed towards the throne room. When you are ready, my lord, the last trial before facing him, you may go through. I looked Miasma deep into his sunken eyes and nodded to say I was ready. He snapped his cane to the floor and a misty green portal sprang open before us. I winked at Angel and stepped through with Miasma.